you have the pleasure of not hearing me speak. You get to hear Brother Sam Pavlak speak for us today. It's an honor to have him in the house with us today. It all began here for Pastor Sam, and I believe he's going to share probably a little bit about some of the things that he's been through and share about the word that God's put on his heart today. Just one more time, could you help me welcome Brother Sam Pavlak? We honor you today, Brother Sam.
Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate it, man. Well, I'm so excited to be home. This will always be home. And some of you knew me when. Don't tell anybody about those days, all right? But it is just so great to be back here. Yeah, it started here. For me, it started way up between 2nd and 3rd Street on Franklin Street. When I was born in 1950, I was born way up there. And the church was meeting in an old theater called the Uptown Theater at that time. My grandpa Rice, James Rice, founded this church. He came first here from Mishawaka in 1933 to start a church, and it wasn't easy in those days. It was still the rage of depression almost going on to start a church. And my dad had gone out to California in the CCC, Conservation Corps under Franklin Roosevelt, came back home, and his brothers had got involved in this little church, and they brought him, and he came in, and we stayed ever since. My brother Richard, who so many of you knew and loved so much, of course, went to be with the Lord just a few weeks ago, and we had his services, and just feels strange coming home and Dick not being here, because he was such a fixture, you know. In fact, I'm not an early riser. I don't get up till about 7 o'clock every morning, and now that I'm retired, I've been known to lay in bed till 7:10 on some occasions, but I don't get up early. But if you knew Dick, you know that Dick got up in the middle of the night most of the time. Was down there at McDonald's with his buddies passing out them little Bibles, you know, all early in the morning. So whenever Dick told you, I'll meet you at 5:30, he meant he'd be there at 4:30. And so every time I come home, every day, I was dragging out about 4:30 to go meet Dick somewhere here in town. It feels funny to come back home and not be seeing Dick every day. But it's just great to be back with family, with my brother-in-law Danny and Ruby, and so glad I've lived long enough to be a burden on the family now. That's so wonderful. Roger, where'd Roger run off to? Roger picked me up at the airport and then gave me his car to use while I'm here. And I said, you know, if you can't use family, who can you use, right? And so it was just so great, and I appreciate that. I've got to mention, he would kill me for doing it. I mentioned I've got a lifetime buddy here this morning. This has been a pleasant, wonderful surprise. Many of you may know Dennis Schultz. He owns Myers Paint and Glass down by Ames Field. Dennis and I met when we were 13 years old. I'd been out in Oregon trying to go to a different school, and my folks finally moved in from Rolling Prairie area back into Michigan City, down on Superior Street, and got a little apartment there for a while. And one of the first mornings, this guy met me in the street, and a couple boys named Swanson lived across the street. Phil Peer, one of our great buddies who we lost in Vietnam. Later, we kind of became the gang that walked all the way out to Barker School every day when we were freshmen. So we met about 13, 14 years old, whatever we were. I'm going to say I probably was held back so many times. I was probably 18 by then. But we'd meet and we'd walk out there, and we just stayed friends ever since. We played basketball in the snow until our eyelashes would be caked, you know, with basketball. I tell people around the world, I've been in 30 countries of the world speaking, and I tell people in other countries of the world about Indiana basketball. I tell them that when you're born in Indiana, they take a pacifier out of your mouth and give you a basketball. You know, that's basically what happens. I could still take some of you inside. But anyway, we love to play. And the only thing that kept Dennis and I out of the NBA, I'm not kidding, man. We would have been Larry Bird and you know, we'd have been Seth. Who knows what we'd have been. Only two things kept us out of the NBA. One, we were too short, and two, we weren't very good. That's the only things that kept us out of the NBA. But it is good to be back home. I'm not going to get melancholy this morning, but I'm going to tell you that I don't know how many times I'll be back here. Now, let me tell you something. I'm in perfect health. I'm amazing health. You just wouldn't be how good a health. I'm 75 years old now. Somebody said, how's it feel to turn 75? I said, I didn't know because it happened this fast. That's what I didn't know. But it happened so fast. I'm 75 years old now. I'm in great shape. I've had 2 knee replacements, a hip replacement, aortic valve replacement, open heart surgery, 5 stents, spine surgery, 5 vocal cord surgeries. I'm in amazing shape. They are rebuilding me all over again. But I thank God I can walk a big bridge over the Indian River down there by the Kennedy Space Center every morning. I make my 2 miles, huffing and puffing, and very few old women pass me when I'm walking. I'm telling you, I'm doing so good with that. But it's just great to be home. And I said, I don't know how many times I'll be back and that kind of thing. I am now retired, as much as you can retire from ministry. But my son said, if you get an invitation, Dad, take it. They're not going to keep coming very long. So, go ahead and take them. Most of my peers, Pastor, are retired or dead. So, it's a different day. But I'm going to tell you, I'm determined not to be a cranky old man. That is one thing I will not be, is a cranky old man. I love these young people. I want you to know I love your pastor. I'm excited that he's your pastor. And I just know good things, absolutely. Good things are coming, man. In this church, I am excited. I got to be with his dad last weekend and Mom. And, they're getting old, but, it was great. It was great to be with them. And I'm trying to keep them young. It was really good. And, of course, Grandpa, I don't know where Grandpa's hiding now, but he's back here somewhere. Richard, man alive, Richard was working in the garage when it was up on Michigan all those years ago. I was a junior in high school. I was pumping gas. Don, many of you know Don Gifford, of course, and Mary, I saw Mary earlier today. Don was about 4 years younger than me, my sister Valerie's age. And when RJ and Mary would go to dinner about 5 o'clock in the evening, Don and I would take over the filling station. And we would roll up those little bags that they had for candy there. And we put tape around them, and we get a wiffle bat. And we get out in the parking lot, and we play ball while they had gone to dinner during that lunch hour. And a lot of times, we didn't want to be interrupted. If cars were like going to pull in for gas, we tried to wave them on, just wave them on. We're playing ball here. We can't. Okay. RJ said to me one time, I wondered why I never made any money when we went to dinner. But we all go back so many ways. There, I won't take you back that journey a lot more, a bit. I want to speak for a few minutes on the subject, a few good men. A few good men. Now, who has that motto? Marines. Hoorah. There we go. I have a grandson that's finishing 12 years in the Marines. He's a Force Recon Marine, tough guy with the sweetest spirit you ever knew. I have another grandson that's in his 7th year of the Air Force. He's got a real tough assignment. He's just bought a condo on the 32nd floor of a beautiful high-rise overlooking Honolulu Bay in Hawaii, protecting us and defending our country with every coconut that he eats. But I'm telling you, we love him. A few good men. This is Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to every one of you. Can I open with a little disclaimer? Maybe the truth is your dad wasn't that great. Maybe the truth is your dad wasn't there. Maybe the truth is you don't even have a relationship with your dad now. Maybe you had the unfortunateness of your dad passing when you was a kid, or maybe you didn't ever know your dad at all, like so many have suffered. And what I'm going to share today may be a little bit painful if that was your case, and you may not be able to relate to everything I say today, but I think you'll be able to relate to enough to say, if you have kids, this is the dad you're going to be. If you're going to have kids, this is who you're going to be. I have 2 of the greatest kids in the world. My son is a strange mix. He is an entertainer, pastor of a church. He's one of the biggest entertainers and travels the world, sings, unbelievable musician. In fact, he'll be in Valparaiso at the Valparaiso Performing Arts Center this Friday night, I think it is, with one of his groups called the AC Boys. They're kind of like the Jersey Boys. And God gave him a burden and a passion for the entertainers of the world. And 20 years ago, he planted a church and pastors that church in Orlando, 35,000 entertainers in Orlando. And he's got a church full that he has pointed to Christ as their Savior, as entertainers. Now, when you go in the entertainment business, you're talking about all kinds of things in the entertainment world, tough things that are there. And boy, God's used that young man in just a tremendous way. My daughter and her husband pastor a wonderful church by the Kennedy Space Center, Titusville. When they built their new house, they built a new house with an apartment for me on the end. They said they always planned to build one for Mom and Dad because someday Mom and Dad would quit running around the world and settle down and come home. And they wanted a place for us. Well, as you know, almost 3 years ago, Mom went on to her reward. A great lady. And I got to spend 53 years with her. And she was dynamic and just an outstanding lady. I got mad at God one time after she passed. I'm driving down the road alone. She'd sat in that other seat for all those years. And to reach over out of habit and her not be there was tough on me for a while. And I said to God one day from the depth of my heart, why her, not me? That woman touched people like nobody ever knew. Why her, not me? And I just said, God, why do you have to take her so young? She was only 73 when she passed. Why do you have to take her so young? And I felt in my spirit, I could almost hear God say, I don't hear God in a voice, but I thought I heard him say in my heart, she was mine first. She was mine first. And I gave her to you for 53 years. And I wanted her back. And she deserved her reward. I'll do a little plug. I was here a while back when you were in the gym doing the air conditioning in here. And I've written a novel. It's a novel with great stories. You'll read about miracles in here that'll blow your mind. I did not write it as a Christian novel. I did not write it as a preacher. I did my best to not be a lot of Christianese in it. But you will see God in this entire book. You'll hear one family's journey. It's called The Journey of 100 Years. When a little 8-year-old boy named Kazimierz Pawlak came with his mother from Poland and arrived in, of all places, Michigan City, to go out and stay with an uncle in Otis, and started their journey in Otis. And it's a journey of 100 years. It's broke down into 10 decades. Each decade, 10 years, from May 8th, 1893 to May 8th, 1993, when that little boy's grandson was the first Pawlak to go back to Poland, and that was me. And it's a story of 100 years, and every proceed of this book is going now to my beloved Poland. Pat and I got to spend 10 years there. We served as missionaries there. I go every year still to Poland, and I speak in many of those churches there and have a lot of great friends there. I'm helping one particular church that's now taken on another 46 Ukrainian families to care for as the Ukrainians that have left Ukraine and come into Poland. We're trying to help them. The proceeds go to help those if you're interested. If you got the book when I was here before and read it, go ahead and buy another one. You might want to see if it's any different this time. But anyway, no. Anyway, have a good time. If you weren't here, you've never seen it, I'll meet you back there. And if you let me autograph your book, it'll be worth, oh my goodness, if my signature is in that book 1,000 years from now, that's going to be worth a lot of money. So anyway, we'll see you back there. And so good to see old friends here today. I'm telling you, see ones. Every time I think about coming to Michigan City, Indiana, I think of my dad, because my dad never could say he was from Indiana. He always had to say, I'm from Michigan City, Indiana. He always put Michigan City in there. My Uncle John used to say after World War II, I'm never getting any farther out of Michigan City that I can't see the smokestacks of Pullman's. That's as far as he ever wanted to get out of Michigan City. They had to burn the place down for him to ever leave town. And so I love it. Let me share with you a few good men, just a few good men. I don't want to read to you scripture in just a moment, but I want to help you ladies first. Now, we got two things to do here. I'm supposed to speak and you're supposed to listen, okay? If you get done before I do, let me know, would you? Just wave and I'll stop, all right? So listen closely. Ladies, I want to help you on Father's Day for a minute. I want to give you the thesaurus of man. The thesaurus of man. You know what a thesaurus is? That's that book that gives you other words for a word or gives you a different way to say it or mean it. Well, let me help you ladies. If you didn't have this, I want to help you today. I want you to hear what men mean when they say certain things. Are you ready for that? When a man says, it would take me too long to explain it to you. What it means is he has no idea how it works. When a man says, take a break, honey, you're working too hard, it means I can't hear the game over your vacuum cleaner. When a man says, that's interesting, dear, he means, are you still talking? When a man says it's a guy thing, he means there is no rational thought pattern connected with this, and you have no chance of making anything logical here. When a man says, can I help you with dinner? He means, why isn't it ready already? When a man says, sure, honey, yes, dear, he means absolutely nothing. It's a conditioned response. He just does that. When a man says, you know how bad my memory is, what he's really saying is, I can remember the theme of Hogan's Heroes. I can remember the phone number of the first girl I ever kissed. I can remember the vehicle ID number on every car I ever owned. Yeah, I forgot your birthday. When a man says, oh, don't fuss, I just cut myself, it's no big deal, he means, I probably severed a limb, but I'll bleed to death before I admit it. I'm hurt, get over here, help me. When a man says, I can't find it, he means it didn't fall into my outstretched hand, so I'm completely clueless. Oh, some of you like that one. When a man says, I heard you, he means I haven't the foggiest clue what you just said, and I'm hoping desperately that I can fake it well enough so that you'll not spend the next 3 days yelling at me. When a man says, you know, I could never love anyone else, what he really means is, I'm used to the way you yell at me, and I could have done worse. Real quickly, when a man says, you look terrific, he means, please don't try on another outfit. We're late and I'm hungry. When a man says, I'm not lost, I know exactly where I am, he means no one will ever see us alive again. When a man says, I don't think I can go today, he means shopping is not a sport, and no, I'm never going to think of it that way. When a man says, I don't remember saying that, it's because he means anything I may have said 6 months ago is inadmissible in an argument, and in fact, all past comments become full, null and void after 7 days. When a man says, that's not what I meant, he means if something I said can be interpreted 2 ways, and one of the ways makes you sad or angry, I meant the other one. And if your husband says, honey, what color is this? He means men only see 2 colors. And peach is not a color, and pumpkin is a fruit, and they have no idea what taupe is. So there, ladies, I hope that helped you with the thesaurus a little bit. Luke chapter 15, verses 17 through 20. And when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father. I will say unto him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me one of the hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was yet way off, his father saw him, had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. I want to talk about the 5 occupations of fatherhood. The 5 occupations of fatherhood. Number 1, fathers are to be educators. Their number 1 is educator. My brother-in-law, I'm going to pick on him this morning. He said to me last night in a conversation, his son had said sometimes, well, my dad taught me to do this, and my dad showed me how to do that. And he said, I don't remember ever teaching him some of those things. And I got thinking, you didn't have to instruct him. He watched you. He watched you. I was thinking about Dennis and myself and our dads. They were blue-collar guys. His dad was a block mason, brick mason, tremendous hard worker. And I know sometimes he'd be around the house when the snowstorms came because he couldn't go out and work. And I remember him in the summer times. He worked a lot. My dad worked at Joy for years and years and years. There was a machinist there all those years. And they were hardworking men. I don't remember my dad pulling me aside and necessarily showing me how to check the oil with my dipstick on the car. But I remember that machinist telling me, you could run out of gas a lot of times, you'll only run out of oil once. I remember him saying, don't ever pull in and get gas without lifting that hood and checking that oil. You could have picked up a rock. It could have hit your pan. You could have dripped some oil out by now. Now, you never have to check oil on the cars today. And I'm so habitual that I cannot get gas without popping my hood and making sure my oil is still all right. And it's fine. I know it's fine every time. I didn't necessarily go to a class on that, Last thing I ever got to was an auto class. Dennis was a motorhead here. He got great classic cars. Man, I turned the key. If it didn't turn on, I was lost after that. That wasn't my gig. I wasn't a mechanic. I wasn't a machinist. I wasn't a motorhead. I was a motor mouth. And that's what I had to use was my mouth most of the time, and still do. But the truth is, we watched. And yeah, it wasn't always easy. And I'll say in a little bit something about how we speak to our sons sometimes. I remember coming over to Dennis's house, and I remember his dad's big bull voice yelling out through that house, "Dennis!" And boy, we didn't know if Dennis was in trouble or not. And it usually meant you didn't clean that lawnmower up good enough when you cut the yard. Or you need to do this, that, or the other. Yeah, sometimes to us it was just somebody barking at us again. But we learned things that we never forgot. Because our fathers are educators. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 7 says, "And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and they shall talk of them when thou sits in the house, when thou walks by the way, and when thou lies down, and when thou rises up." You see, there's a talking class, Dad. It's called communication. It's called communication. Talk a lot when you can around your kids. There's a sitting class. It's called time at home. Time at home. It's called a walking class. It's separate once in a while. Take a walk with your kid. He'll never forget it. There's a resting class. Be less busy. Be less busy. There's a rising class. That's diligence and ambition and load sharing that child can learn. Be the trainer. You're the educator, but you're also the trainer. Watch this closely. Proverbs 22:6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it." Not depart from it. We've used that as a great comfort to children who maybe don't serve God. We trained them right. We raised them in church. They ought to go to church. And we say, well, we trained them up, and they'll do that someday. I don't know if that's really talking about that or not. I trust it is. I use that as a promise. But he's talking here about it. It is the what? You got to say, what is the it in this verse? Train up a child. When he gets old, he will not depart from it. What? That training. He won't get away from that training that you gave him. It'll still be there. He'll still be hearing Dad's voice. My dad's been gone 24 years now. I miss him terribly. Those of you who knew Frank Pavlak knew what a wonderful, kind, godly man he was. My goal now is to become like my dad. If people ever knew my dad would say that was the sweetest old man I ever knew. And that's all I want to be, is the sweetest old man you ever knew. Now, they haven't been able to say that yet, so I'm working on it. But the truth is, watch this closely. Train them up. It's not telling them, but showing them. Let them see it in you, Dad. And you train them up, not put them down. The biggest thing dads fight's not putting their kids down. They should have known better. I've heard fathers say, "How stupid can you be?" I always wanted to say when they said that, I don't know, I'm your kid. I don't know, you tell me how dumb I can be. You made me, for crying out loud. What were you thinking? Just tell you a quick one. I was in a restaurant recently, and I saw a guy with his kid, and the kid had gotten a B in algebra. And he berated that kid. "How did you get a B in algebra? You're so dumb. You're so stupid. You got a B. You know you could do." And every time he would attack his kid, I could see the kid's shoulder just kind of go down. I could see him get lower. Man, I got so aggravated. If I wasn't the most sweet, loving man in the world, I'd love to kick him. Anyway, I just heard him beating that kid down. And since my mouth has always led my life, I couldn't stay quiet. As I walked out, I turned around and I said to him, "Hey, pal, who you kidding you to give your eye teeth have ever gotten a B in algebra?" I walked out. And then I waited for him to come after me, and he didn't. Thank God he didn't. He didn't. I can't run that fast anymore. So what happens? You bring them up. There is nothing that improves a kid's behavior like the words, "I know that you're better than this. I know you can do this. I know you got something in you." That word, that compliment goes so far. And lead them in the way. The way means the path. The way means the road. Show them a path. Show them a road that's right. Let them see that produce something in you, and they want to produce that in their life. And not the way they will go, the way they should go. They may go a different way. Our kids go different ways. Oh, I had plans for my kids, man. I laid it out. I knew what their life was going to be. I knew how I was going to take care of it. I knew, guess what they do? They come home with another set of blueprints under their arm one day. And they say, hey, Dad, I want to show you something. Your blueprints don't match mine. I got another idea. I wanted my kid to play ball because I played ball. I really didn't care whether I just wanted him to try it. So he played football all the way up through his freshman year of high school, got ready to go into his sophomore year. He said to me one day, Dad, what'd you say if I wouldn't play ball anymore? I said, I don't care. If you're not having fun, I want you to do it. I don't want to be one of them dads trying to accomplish what I wasn't good enough to do. So, if you play, that's great, whatever. Why? Dad, I like music. Dad, I like playing guitar. Hey, Dad, I got some guys. We want to put a garage band together. We want to put a garage band together. Would you mind? I'd like not to play ball this year and just really get devoted to music. Well, he's now 53 years old. And he's made more money than I'll ever see in my life with music. He got a book when he was in 7th grade that said, Making Money, Making Music. And he found out how many ways there is to make money making music. And he's done great at it. He had another plan. I had to watch that. Now there's a couple hard times because the next thing he wanted to do is grow his hair real long. That was a little tough on Dad. Dad didn't really like that much. And then he came with the ultimate one. Hey, Dad, I'd like to put a ring in my ear. Come on, man. Come on, man. So I finally said, you know what? I watch pastors and their children have fights. I watch pastors and their children. I saw their children walk out of church and never walk in church again because they had to live Dad's faith. And I said, I'm not going to have that with my son. I said, son, I don't like the idea because I don't want people to think wrong of you. I don't want them to judge you wrongly. And all of my church people that I know will judge you very harshly for doing that because we're very judgmental people. Gave us the right. God gave us exclusively the right to judge everybody. And so we're very judgmental people in the church I grew up in. And so this is what's going to happen. And I knew they would judge you. Now, back in those days, bear with me a minute. Back in those days, if you wore it in one ear, it meant you were straight. If you wore it in another ear, it meant you were gay. And I didn't know which ear that was. And so I'm like, okay, you know me, you know my generation, you know where I come from. Make sure it's in the right ear. That's all I ask. Make sure it's in the right ear. Well, I've learned a lot of things since that time. He went on, did great. His dream was to be a rock star. His dream was to be a massive rock star. I didn't like the life. I was fearful of the life. But he also felt God had something for him to do. And he loved God. He found out some years later that he could be an entertainer and still love God. And he could be an entertainer and he could pastor a church. The one day God would tell him, go reach entertainers. And now for 20 years, he's built a fabulous church, never had to take a penny of support from that church, and been able to pay off a $1.2 million building because God provided another way for him to live that he loved doing. And yet, he's got a whole congregation of people that love his love, love his generosity. So when we're talking about the way they should go, it's not the way they will go, it's that their life will be what it should be in whatever they choose to be, Dad. And let me wrap this up quickly. When we get old, this one fits. It said, raise them up in the way they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart from it. It'll still come back. Thirdly, quickly, you got to be a banker, Dad. God's called you to be the banker. 2 Corinthians 12:14 says, for the children ought not lay up for their parents, but the parents for their children. That's what it says. But the parents for their children. What's that mean? It means we should teach them management. We should teach them the evil of materialism. We should teach them moderation. They need to see Dad say, I really want that Harley right now, but I better wait. Maybe we really can't fit it in the budget. They grow up seeing Dad make wise decisions with their finances, and they remember that voice that says, I wonder what Dad would say right now if I thought of doing this. I wonder what Dad would think of it. And fourthly, gardener. You're a gardener. Ephesians 6:4, and ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and the admonition of God. Bring them up, bring them along, nurture them, feed them in the right things. Admonition, that means use your authority to counsel them and to warn them what's out there. And last this morning, You know what it means when a preacher says last? Absolutely nothing. But I really am going to try to do it, all right? Last this morning, you're the policeman. You know where blue lives matter? In your home. Blue lives matter in your home more than anywhere else. 1 Timothy 3:4 says, one that ruleth well his own house, having his children in subjection with all gravity. Children need to know serious. My dad was not a beater. Oh, no, I misunderstand. He used to tell us that we had this wonderful organ in this little part of our body. And all it had was nerves that went up to the brain. And that he could smack that. If you ever knew my dad, he had twice the hand I had. And one good smack on that organless part of the body, it felt like 10,000 bees went into you right there. And it has nerves that went right to the brain and said, I chose to do the wrong thing, and that brought pain into my life. And the reason he did it was that I would learn that when I made the wrong decisions in God and with his life and with his rules, it brought pain into my life. It was going to bring pain into my life. So he had to be the policeman sometime. That rule, that guidance, and that subjection is natural obedience that has to be there. The problem today is absentee fathers. 92% of every career criminal in America now had no father at home. Is that an irony? Is that just, unusual? I know an elementary school teacher that gets hit and got knocked down last week and got her hand broken by a fifth grader. And when the parents come in, they're worse than the kid. There's no dad, there's no authority, there's no rules. I don't know about you, but if I got in trouble at school, I was in some kind of trouble at home. I was in some kind of trouble at home. Nobody went up to Elston High School. None of my parents went up and attacked Warren Jones because I'd done something stupid in school. No, I got twice. I got another punishment. My parents used the timeout method. They took time to beat my hind end. But anyway, that's another method that took place. Dennis knew my mother. He knows some early mornings before school when I was really being goofy for most of the time. The problem is the absent fatherhood. These kids don't know how to think. Now, I sound old, but it's true. Dad didn't teach them how to think. He wasn't there. They don't know how to think. They don't know where to go. They don't know what to do with money and how to use it. They're unpredictable. They're fruitless, and they're unruly. They're out of control. And the danger is they want to use absentee fatherism. I didn't have a dad there. That's why I can hold up that 7-Eleven. Hello? You know, I'm entitled. I had a tough life. I ought to get a break here some way. Ronald Reagan once said that we think the government should take care of us, would solve our problems. I like what he said. He said the government is our problem. They don't solve our problem. They are our problem. And last, the hope. But here's the hope. I know I've been a little negative, but here's the hope. There are godly fathers. And Dad, you today can decide, I want my kids to remember me someday. And even if it's late in my life, my kid, maybe I've never complicated my kid a lot. Even late in life, I love saying to my son, I'm proud of you, man. You did. You know, I told somebody last night, all we wanted for our kids was for them to be more successful than we were. We wanted our kids to do better than we did. Boy, were we successful. Our kids have done a lot better, some of them, than we did. You know, we really got the job done, didn't we? Watch this. The top profession in this town is supposed to be the father. The top profession in Michigan City. Went by my old place on Spring Street. It's just a lot now when I lived up there. I started to drive when I was there. And went by the old place where that big old house stood on Spring just off 7th Street. Came across the street, and Danny showed me a place where they had a shootout just recently. Somebody was killed. The neighborhood wasn't like that when I was there. And you can blame everything in society you want to blame. But the truth of the matter is, if this town was filled with great dads, can you imagine what a difference we'd have? in this city, the biggest hero in this town, the biggest hero in this town is Dad. Dad, are you a hero? Maybe you've had the unfortunate of divorce break your home up. Maybe you had the unfortunateness that you don't get to see your kids often, or you don't get to, or you have to share them. Nothing in what's happened to you had anything to do with what kind of father you're going to be. That's another world. That's another world. You can be that father that they want to be with. You can be that father that they like to be with. You can be, and they're begging you to be that father they need. That father that doesn't just give them more than their mother gives them when it's your weekend. No, that father that will say, I'm worried about what you're doing now. I'm concerned about what I see. They don't know that they're begging for it, but they're begging for that kind of help, that kind of guidance. And maybe you were under the gun. I plan on living to be at least 90, minimum 90 years old. That's a minimum. Polacks are long livers. And I'm going to live a long time. My Uncle John was 96. My Uncle Eddie was 93. My dad was in a car accident with Jerry that probably shortened some time of his life, but he still lived way up in there. My dad started jogging at 70 years old. And so I'm going to live to at least 90 minimum. Minimum. There's 170,000 people in America over 100 years old now. So who knows how long we could live. So I plan to live at least 90. Dr. Summerall, my wife's pastor for years, would always say to me personally, Sam, plan to live to be 90. Always plan to live to be 90. The first 30 years was learning. The second 30 years was doing. And the last 30, you'll be teaching what you learned and did. Some of us are there. Some of us are there. Dad, maybe we're too hard on the kids. And any mom and dad that would tell me today, if they had to do all over again, they'd do everything the same. Boy, are you dumb. You didn't learn nothing, did you? A lot of things I would have done differently. A lot of things I didn't handle the best way in the world that I should have handled, one way or the other. And I'm picking on Dennis today, but he had a great mom. I loved his mom. I don't know if he ever knew that his mom used to call and drop a dime on him every once in a while. He used to call, pray for my Dennis. Dennis is having a rough time, and he's going through some rough things right now. I had no idea. Good Lord, mine was much worse. People would call my mother-in-law. They called Jean. Oh, goodness. She went right to God on me every time. Man, you're in trouble when somebody goes to God on you. And she would go to God on me every time. Now watch this. And this is what I want you to get. It's not too late, Dad. It's not too late. Maybe I yelled at him too much. Maybe I didn't compliment him enough. Maybe I wasn't there at times I should have been there. Maybe my work, I made my work so big, so important. I wasn't there for some of their best events. It's not too late, Dad. It's not too late. You're still here. Maybe this week you'll find an excuse to reach up and pat that son on the shoulder. Say to, maybe not heard it from me a lot, but I am proud of you. You're doing a good job. I see you don't do some things like I did. Maybe that's a pretty good idea. Maybe that's a pretty good idea, son. You don't have to be all slobbery and flowery. You're from Michigan City. You'll never be slobbery and flowery. All right? I know this world. I never heard my dad, I don't know if I ever heard my dad say the words, I love you, out of his mouth. And I never doubted one day of his love. Doubted one day of his love because he did it. Yeah, them old guys didn't quite know how to put into words what they wanted to put into words. But he got up at dark and he headed out of that house. And he came in late after the work hours. And sometimes when the fish were hitting in the basin, he was still doing something on that old pump at that place on Cool Spring when he'd a lot rather been down there at the basin fishing that night. Why did he do that? He did that for me. Dad, they know you did that. But it still is an amazing thing to have you say, hey, son, hey, daughter, you're my princess. Hey, I love you. You know your old man loves you. And can I say old man is not a bad term? I know society says it is. Society is dumb. Society's real dumb. I found out in selling books at a church with my granddaughter. And I saw a lady I hadn't seen in a long time. And I said to her, she walked away, "Good to see you. We'll hook up sometime." How do you know what that means? My granddaughter said to me, "Dziaduś," that's what they call me, grandfather in Polish. "Dziaduś, you can't say that to ladies." I can't say what? You just said that lady will hook up. Well, yeah, maybe we'll get a cup of coffee somewhere. No, Dziaduś. Listen, Dad, if you're old like me, they know you're old. All right? Tell that kid this week. Tell that kid this week. Tell that kid this week. Because one day you won't tell him anymore. Make sure it gets done. Because this church needs heroes. This church needs a few good men. This town needs some father heroes in this town. You can be that. You can be that. Many of you are that now. Keep it going. Find it better and do it more. Heavenly Father, I pray a prayer of blessing over this congregation today and over every man, over every dad. For those who never had children, they can be fathers to so many. They can be fathers on the workplace. They can be fathers to their neighbors. They can be fathers to somebody going through a tough time. For those who've lost children and they've had the heartbreak of child loss, would you come with your comfort? And would you bring another child that they can speak kindly to and do something for? God, help us all to put action to our faith. Let us be a few good men that our wives need, that our kids need, that our grandkids need, that our great-grandkids need. Let them be able to say of us someday on a Father's Day, "Boy, my grandpa was a great guy. Boy, my great-grandpa was a great guy. Hey, my dad had his faults. Man, that guy did some stuff right." We thank you for this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, Pastor.
Well, I don't think there's a whole lot more to say. I just think that there's a charge that we can put into men this morning. I promise I'm from Michigan City. This church needs men. This city needs men. This world needs men. As he said, you might not have physical children, but there are children that need dads. Are you willing to answer the call? I don't know about you, but I want to see this church be a place where people that don't have fathers, where they can come in and they can be fathered. I want to see this church cheer on those that never had a dad, but we see the God in them. And I want to say this to you men, it's in you already. Many of you have walked in it. Many of you have been faithful in it. But the truth is, Brother Sam, that a lot of us, not me, but a lot of us in here are getting older. And if some of us young men don't step up, who's going to be the dad? Who's going to be a Jerry Blackston? Who's going to be a Rich Safer? Who's going to be, and you add just about every elder that's in this room, who's going to be those men? Young men, if we don't step into the call of God, we're going to let a generation down. But I believe in you. I believe that you possess everything on the inside of you because you possess Jesus to be the father, not only to Faith City, but to Michigan City and the world around you. And if just this room could get that right, Michigan City would be a different place. So would you stand with me one more time as we prepare to dismiss this morning? Jesus, we just thank you today for the truth. God, and I just pray that this word would be a word that penetrates every heart, every man's heart, God. That there would just be a stirring in our spirit from this point forward of how we can just be the dad that you've called us to be. Lord, I just thank you for the truth that came forth today. I thank you for the wisdom that's come forth today, God, and we choose to receive it. We choose to receive it. And today, Lord, I pray that every man that this has stirred their heart, that they would answer the call and say, yes, Lord, I'm available. Lord, today we stand as men, and we just say that we're available to you today. I pray blessing, favor, of health, and just a great time together with family today, Lord. Let it start today. Let it start today as we're spending time with families, and maybe there's somebody that doesn't have a dad. Maybe we can reach out and just encourage them today, God. And I just thank you for this time, and we just, most of all, thank you, God, that you've been that example. We just thank you for that in Jesus' name. Amen. Before you run out, we have something for all of you men. I'm going to beat you out the back door here. Please stop and grab something. Please stop and see Brother Sam at his book station. You won't want to miss seeing that journey of 100 years.